Well, I said in my last video that we were going to learn lots of new wonderful acronyms because, yes, it turns out that at the moment, not surprisingly, there are a heck of a lot of very dissatisfied Tory MPs. And turns out they're looking at the ERG and going, could we do that? Could we, pretty much form our own very powerful group and take control of the Tory party? Now, this is quite interesting because historically, when these groups have formed, first of all, it hasn't been good for the party, and it has been the foreshadowing of pretty much civil war internal in the party. And I think this was definitely what is going to come down the track very, very quickly. Because all these parties have different goals, different, jobs, and the ERG's goal has been pretty much to deregulate the UK, get out, the UK out of the European Union in the most hardest Brexit possible it can possibly achieve and push for, as well as pushing the Conservative Party even more far right on positions such as immigration, spending, you name it. Pretty much any policy you can name has been pretty much influenced by this. But because we now have, especially in the north, because surprise, surprise, a group of northern Conservative MPs is now forming because they are not happy and they have realised, we have quite a lot of power if we group together. So this could be quite interesting because, as we said before, historically when groups like this have formed, this has not only led to Conservative infighting and civil war, but even these groups splitting off to form their own potential parties. To what success? Again, not, but this has been a potential thing that has happened in the past. So, who knows what could happen, but let's get into it because it's time to learn some new acronyms like, the ERG, the European Research Group. So, this comes... So this comes from The Guardian. The title is, Dissatisfied Tory MPs flock to ERG-inspired pressure groups. So Conservative MPs who see the government as remote or lacking a policy agenda are flocking to the backbench pressure groups in order to force Downing Street to listen to the concerns. After seeing the success of the European Research Group in shaping Brexit policy, a string of new groups have been set up in recent months, with the remit on issues from migration to criticism of the, quote, woke agenda. Whatever. They claim to have their finger on the pulse of these subjects, which voters in the party's treasured new Red Wall seats care about. One MP, who is a member of two of the new groups, told The Guardian, I would say that we're ready for a culture war, and we are confident that our policy agenda will help win it. Are we really going to get into this culture war nonsense? The next few years are going to be fantastic, I tell you that now. But yeah, this is going to be, they're going to use the culture war now. So the Tories are going to use the culture war to essentially hide their complete incompetence and essentially not fight, and deal with the real issues of the day. Much like we saw recently that, the real reason why people are on benefits are just because they're lazy, not because of, numerous reasons of years of under investment in the north and, pretty much lack of opportunities for these people that we have essentially just taken away from them. We're not going to talk about that. It's because they're lazy. Yeah. So the latest of these groups, the COVID Recovery Group, or the CRG, was announced on Tuesday and appears to pose the most direct threat of rebellion over the government's policies on lockdown. It is led by the ERG veteran Steve Baker, who one member said was, quote, the best whip in Westminster. It launched with 50 members, and at least 10 more have joined its ranks in the last 24 hours, The Guardian understands. The Common Sense Group, which launched quietly in the summer with about 40 members, was the subject of a front-page story in the Daily Telegraph this week after it accused the National Trust of being coloured by Marxist dogma and in the grip of elite bourgeois liberals over a report that acknowledging links between its properties and slavery. Why on earth are you so... I mean, it is right that they acknowledge links between property and slavery. It's history. But apparently, it's part of the, quote, woke agenda. So it now has 59 MPs and 7 members in the House of Lords in its ranks. Sir John Hughes, the founder of the group, told The Guardian, the ERG has severed an important role, and it has very largely done its work. The government has to decide what its defining purpose is beyond Brexit. There's a thirst in the party to have an open debate about what the direction should be now. There's a different kind of Conservative family emerging. I am loving this because even Conservatives are now realising that essentially there has been nothing planned beyond Brexit. And as we've said before, next year we are going to see what the Conservative agenda is. So it's very likely we are going to see and be hearing a lot about more of these groups and the agenda that they want to set beyond Brexit. And quite frankly, this Common Sense group, prepared to be hearing more about them. That's all I'm going to say. So one member of the group, Jonathan Gills, posted a, quote, culture war alert on Facebook last month, telling his followers that that research by Greenwich Maritime Museum into the Royal Navy's links to slavery was left-wing ideological nonsense. I just lose words all this because, as I said before, I'm not interested in this culture war nonsense. But quite frankly, that museum has every right to be able to do that because the Royal Navy did take part in the slave trade in some way, shape or form. So that is history. That should be researched and looked into. Why is that a problem? But here we are. So members have met with Priti Patel to discuss their views on immigration. We had a Zoom meeting with Priti 2 or 3 days forthcoming, and I hope we did have some influence to help shape her thinking, Hayes said. So at the moment there are 3 groups that we need to keep an eye on. So write these down because I'm sure we will be hearing from these in a bit. So the first of which is there's the Northern Research Group, which aims to hold the government accountable to its levelling up agenda of the North. Most of these are the new the Blue Wall Conservatives, as they're called, and they're led by Jake Berry. Surprise, surprise, he's coming up again. So we have these people. Very clear LinkedIn. There's about 41 from what we can see here. You've got the Common Sense Group with at least 59 MPs, and there are 28 MPs named, and their leader is John Hayes. And of course, we've got the COVID Recovery Group with at least 12 named MPs, and their leader is Steve Barker and Mark Harper. And they have about 60 MPs according to them, which again poses quite a number of possibilities. But also these groups do have some overlap, particularly the Northern Research Group and the Common Sense Group, with about, according to this, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 crossovers between that group. But yeah, It's unbelievable. But anyway, the article continues. So on Wednesday, members of the Northern Research Group, or the NRG, used a Westminster Hall debate to call on the government to set out a Northern Economic Recovery Plan. One member for Southport MP Damien Moore, told the Minister Kemin Badnoch that we just can't hope our way out of this crisis. Henry Hill, the news editor at the Conservative Home website, said that these are the groups that have been reformed because whereas with Thatcher or Cameron you had a cohort-ism, with Johnson you don't really just have one of those. There are just whole areas of policy where Johnsonism just isn't a thing. The CRG has been modelled on the ERG, which is a tightly organised commission in-depth reports and official briefings for journalists and MPs, and employed a staff researcher who handled communications. The new group has already merged, and a new group has already engaged the services of Ed Baker, a seasoned Tory PR professional and former parliamentarian, the candidate who worked for the pro-Brexit group Global Britain and for Esher McVeigh's short-lived leadership campaign. Ben Bradley, the MP for Mansfield, who was one of the first Red Wall group of Tories to be elected in 2017, is a member of the Common Sense Group and the NRG. He said that the spate of new groups reflect the priorities for the kind of Tory MPs, drawing comparisons with some of the think tanks that emerged under Theresa May, like the Free Market Group and Freer, and Onward, run by May advisors Will Tanner and the MP Neil O'Brien. When we got into 2017, there was this proliferation of new groups, Bradley said. In 2019, there is also a load of new ideas coming from seats that have new priorities, levelling up the North, immigration, and so on. This mechanism for getting that across, this is time for this mechanism to getting that across, but there is a time that there is a senior leadership who are too invested, big guns on the backbenchers like Jake Berry, around John Haynes in the Common Sense Group. There's Esher McVeigh in another group, the Blue Collar Conservatives. It's very much a 2019 viewpoint that has found wider reception. Tim Bailey, the Professor of Politics at Queen Mary University in London, cautioned against the groups being amplified because if a mouthy backbencher is said to represent something, it lends them legitimacy. But he said that this is a turning of the page, and from Brexit they had helped create space for such voices. The energy almost needed to go with this closed system, he said, noting of the CRG that the journey from Euroscepticism to lockdown scepticism is fairly easy. A Tory MP who's part of the CRG said that the new groupings were all viewed as adversarial by Downing Street. The fundamental reason for this is that number 10 is so dormant, they said. It's clear that if you want to be heard, you have to shout. Johnson has no views beyond Brexit. And they're only just discovering this now. Wow. But it would be nice, guys, if you had said, views beyond Brexit, but, this is typical Tory short-sightedness. We're in the particularly odd place now, where access is limited to a very narrow faction, so it's hardly surprising if a real Conservatives are trying to find a way to act. But some backbenchers left out of the new party are concerned about the new factionalism. One who is aligned with the One Nation group, as soft-right Conservatives, said that they feared the emergence of multiple parties within a party. The MP added, "I'm very wary of these new endeavours, given the grief they have wrought on the party last year. But it should be said that if you don't have to be a headbanger to think in that sphere of influence, in number 10 it is far too small, and that the groups that can put pressure on the things that Tory voters care about is not necessarily a bad thing." So there you have it. These new groups. How much of a problem are they going to be for Boris? How much of a problem are they going to be moving forward? We just don't know. But nevertheless, interesting times are definitely coming ahead for the Conservative Party, and I think things are going to be worse for them. I definitely think you're going to be seeing a lot of factionalism. And oh boy, if you've got a group forming that has problems with the Maritime Museum doing research about the Royal Navy's role in slavery. Again, that's not really an issue or policy, but they have every right to do so. That is what a museum does and carries research out. That is what they do. But apparently, that's a big problem. Of course, we all know why, because it damages their precious role of precious Britannia, and of course might damage that view of the precious empire that they also warmingly grab hold of at night, and hope that once again Britain can become this fantastic empire once again. Again, we've said this before, the Tories are desperate to bring back the British Empire, and as we've said before, this just literally can't happen, But there you go. And of course, the Common Sense group ain't going to take on any common sense policies, but there you go. But anyway, it will be fascinating to see what happens with these groups, how much pressure they can actually apply, and what troubles and schisms they are going to cause in the Tory party in the future. But as we've always said before on this channel, the Tory party, when it is united, is strong. When it is divided, it is weak and tends to lose elections. So, with that, thanks for watching. Please do hit that like and share button. And of course, we'll see you all next time.